The Warrior, the anti-tank, the class that believes offense is its greatest defense. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the Warrior and Shadowbringers and answering one simple question. Is it any good though? We'll be looking at the leveling experience, their abilities and how fun/powerful they are, what the class might lack, its place in the meta, and its glamour potential. Let's get started. Let me just say it outright. Warrior is my favorite class. It feels brutal, it feels meaty, and it feels metal as hell. This class is the direct opposite of what I imagine when I hear Final Fantasy. It invokes a feeling of rage and a desire to fell cleave everything in existence. The Warrior carries a big, brutal, two-handed axe and uses it to slice and cleave its foes with the most satisfying skills in the game. Whether you're performing a spinning attack with Storm's Eye, crushing your opponents with Overpower, or slicing your enemies to bits with Warrior's signature fell cleave, the class just looks and feels powerful. Let's begin with the Warrior's leveling experience. Very early into the leveling process, you are given Berserk, a buff that allows all your attacks in the next 10 seconds to be guaranteed critical and direct hits. This is Warrior's specialty. Their burst will always hit as hard as possible. Berserk feels great to get so early on, as you can blow up open world mobs or pump some crazy burst DPS into a dungeon boss. At level 10 you get Overpower, your default area of effect skill, and it's different from all other tank AoE skills, as instead of being a circle around you, it's a cone in front of you. This makes Overpower admittedly difficult to learn, but once you master it, it is certainly the best tank AoE skill, as you can pull things from odd angles and hit enemies as you're running towards them instead of having to be in the middle of them. Warrior's damage in the mid-30s to early 50s can feel a little underwhelming, as your powerful skills don't come up until later. But once you hit level 54 and get that sweet fell cleave, this class becomes arguably the most fun to play and level tank in the game. There's nothing better than building up to 100 gauge, pumping Berserk, and hitting 2 back-to-back crit direct fell cleaves. At level 60, you get Decimate, allowing you to harness the power of fell cleave into an area of effect attack, and at 70 you get Inner Release, Warrior's staple go crazy cooldown. This skill upgrades Berserk and allows you to use your gauge spending skills without a cost, therefore allowing you to use 5 fell cleaves or decimates back to back, and they will all critical and direct hit. Warrior leveling starts great, stagnates a bit around the 30s, but picks back up in the 50s and is a joy to play all the way to 80. Let's quickly go over tanking a leveling dungeon, or in other words, pressing Overpower 60 times in a row. In low level content, it is most efficient to spam Overpower, as the area of effect damage it provides will cause you to do more damage than a single target rotation. When fighting bosses, you'll mostly be using your Storm's Path combo, with Storm's Eye getting mixed in at higher levels. You can use Rampart and Thrill of Battle to reduce incoming damage and help out the healer as well. So you've made it to 80. How does it feel to play? The full Warrior toolkit is among the best between the 4 tanks, and offers a simple but rewarding playstyle that makes you feel powerful in every aspect. From Vengeance performing a counterattack to every enemy that hits you, to Equilibrium being an on-demand big boy heal, this class has it all. It has mitigation, it has healing, and it has power behind every swing. So what exactly does a Warrior excel at? The answer is burst damage and personal healing. The Warrior can put out the highest burst damage of all tanks. With back-to-back Inner Chaoses to Inner Release, you'll be seeing double exclamation points for days. On top of that amazing burst damage, Nascent Flash allows you to heal yourself for 50% of all damage done for 6 seconds. So when you pair up that crazy burst damage with the ability to heal a portion of damage dealt, you can see where Warrior's strength comes from. It's self-reliance. In a level 80 dungeon, your rotation will consist of keeping up Storm's Eye, using your Infuriate charges to maximize your Inner Chaos usages, and using your AoE combo on packs of 2 mobs or more. Try not to cap your gauge, and only use Decimate on 3 targets or more. If you'd like a more in-depth guide to dungeon tanking, you can check out my optimal guide to dungeon tanking video, where I go over all the tips I have to optimize dungeons. Unfortunately, there are always downsides, and we do have to discuss what Warrior lacks in comparison to the other tanks. Nascent Flash, the skill I mentioned earlier that allows you to heal yourself, requires a target, so in solo play your healing potential is much lower than when in a party. On top of that, Thrill of Battle can feel a bit meh, as increasing your HP doesn't actually reduce any damage taken. The nice thing about Thrill of Battle is that the 20% healing bonus does apply to Equilibrium, so popping Thrill to EQ yourself can be a good play. Another area Warrior lacks is in their invuln, Holmgang. It has the shortest duration, and there have been times in the past where the other tanks could have used their invuln in certain scenarios, but because of Holmgang's lower duration, Warrior was left out from performing these invuln strats. It does have the shortest cooldown of all the invulns, but it's rarely short enough to make effective use out of getting an extra holmgang in a fight. Lastly, their Gap Closer Onslaught does not have charges and costs gauge to use, unlike all 3 other tanks. It can make debating between using your Gap Closer or saving that gauge for a Fellcleave/Upheaval frustrating, and it's a choice that the other tanks don't have to make. It does have the shortest cooldown of all Gap Closers, but you'll be using it so rarely as it is generally a DPS loss to use on cooldown that the low cooldown hardly means anything. Let's discuss Warrior's place in the meta. Unfortunately, as much as it feels amazing to play and hits extremely hard, their sustained DPS is the lowest of all 4 tanks. In Final Fantasy XIV we operate under a DPS meta, meaning in almost all scenarios damage is king. Therefore, Warrior is rarely seen in meta groups, and is often only picked for fun or for a change of pace. Does this mean Warrior is terrible and should never be played? Absolutely not. Their damage is not so far behind that they're a detriment to a group, and with Warrior's terrific self-healing, it can be a great choice to play in pugs as you won't need to rely on healers as heavily as the other tanks. When looking to push speed kill rankings and perform optimally, Warrior is not the first choice, but I believe it can be a great asset to progression if played well and if you make effective use of Warrior's healing. Lastly, let's look at Warrior's glamour potential. Needless to say, I believe Warriors have the best selection of weapons in the game. My personal favorite being the Yukov Axe. This is my favorite weapon in the game, bar none. The fending gear in FF has felt a bit lacking in recent history, but Warrior's job-specific armor often looks great and fits the Warrior aesthetic perfectly. My personal favorite AF armor has to be the Stormblood AF armor, as it just screams Warrior to me. All in all, when you combine Warrior's big, brutal axes and their great-looking armor sets, you're gonna have a great time creating outfits and armor sets for Warrior. Let's recap. Warrior's leveling starts off great, slows down a bit in the 30s, but picks back up in the 50s and feels great to play all the way to 80. The level 80 toolkit is solid and it feels like you have an answer to everything the game can throw at you. Warrior's strength comes from its burst damage and unmatched self-healing, assuming you are playing in a party. While they are currently not in the meta, they do stand on their own and can be a great addition to a progression setup, pulling stress off the healers, and of course their glamour game is top notch. Well guys, there you have it, the Warrior. My favorite class, my baby, the class I have played for thousands of hours and can play for thousands more. Unfortunately, due to the negatives I stated in this video, I have moved away from the Warrior and now main Dark Knight, but that's not to say that you shouldn't play Warrior. It's a solid class with amazing self-reliance and the most fun skills of any tank. To answer your question, is it any good though? That answer is a resounding yes. That's all I've got for you today, friends. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with my content, and check out my Patreon if you want to support me further. Follow me on Twitch for live streams, Twitter for tweets, and join my Discord to engage with me directly. All links are down in the description. Thanks so much for watching. Peace!